everybody doing? Good. Well, first of all, thank you, David, for the invitation. As he said, my name is Sanchez. I'm an assistant director for transfer recruitment here at UCLA. We're happy to present and give you some information. Hopefully, this is going to be helpful as you're submitting your applications. From what I hear, everybody's applying this year, right?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody that it's not? Okay. All right, so the majority of you are going to be applying this year, so hopefully this information, again, is going to be helpful as you're going through the process. I do have one of my colleagues, Adriana Ceron. She's going to be helping us out as well. So my first request is that if you have any questions, please write them down, hold on tight to them, because we're going to go through this extensive presentation, and hopefully everything is going to be answered. But again, we're going to stay afterwards to answer any questions, or if there's more individual questions, I'll be more than happy to assist as well. All right. A quick introduction about me. I was a transfer student myself. I went to Santa Ana College, transferred out to UC Santa Cruz. That's where I completed my bachelor's. I worked there for 2 years, and then I went for my master's to UCLA. I continue working here, and I'm here, happy to assist some of my colleagues and, future, hopefully, friends as well. So thank you for having me here. The first thing that I do want to say is that it's going to be a long presentation, so please stay with me. I know this is the last presentation probably for today, but it's pretty good information that you need before you move forward. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is the UC requirements. We do want to, because I do work at UCLA, I also want to share how UCLA makes their selection. I'll briefly talk about choosing your major if you're still debating which major you want to pursue. And then the last thing, we're going to wrap it up with more information about the UC application, things that you need to consider, and some of the resources that you have available for you. How does that sound? Pretty good? All right. So it's going to be, again, a lot of information, a little bit of snippets here and there from different presentations, but hopefully you find everything useful. All right, so the first thing that we need to talk about are the UC minimum requirements. So we're part of the UC system, so we're all sharing this application that you're going to be submitting. So the first thing that we're going to check for is the minimum units, right? So because we want all transfer students to come at the junior level standing, the minimum thing that you need, or the units that you need, are 60 semester or 90 quarter transferable units. We do get a lot of students that are concerned about having too many units. Just remember that if you've only attended California community colleges, it's fine, depending on how many units you have, you'll be fine. Our concern is more when students go to four-year universities, they go to the community college, and then they're trying to transfer out. So that's another discussion that we can have. But again, just minimum units, 60 semester, 90 quarter transferable units. We do look for the 7-course pattern. Again, those 2 transferable English courses, the 1 transferable math, and 4 transferable courses in different subjects, right? So those are kind of like what we call the electives. And then the minimum GPA for the UC, it's a 2.4. Again, it might seem pretty nice, pretty good deal, but remember that every campus is going to be doing their own selection. So now we're going to jump into UCLA. So what are the requirements that we have here at UCLA, and what are the minimum things that we look? So the first thing that we look in any application for transfer students is the major preparation. And this is something that I'm going to continue stressing throughout this presentation, major prep. Because we do have a lot of students that are very competitive as far as the GPA, but they don't have the completion of those major prep requirements. The second thing, it's going to be, of course, the GPA. So at UCLA, we require a minimum of 3.2 or higher. And again, this is going to be depending on the major that you're choosing, which GPA they're going to be required. But the minimum, just to be eligible, and for us to review your application at UCLA, is a minimum of 3.2. We do have some resources. Who's familiar with Assist.org? Right. So that's going to be one of the websites and an online tool that some of the counselors and ourselves, we utilize to make sure that you're following the courses that you need for that specific major. Just keep in mind that Assist.org is going to give you all the possible classes that are going to be available at your community college that are going to be transferable to UCLA and articulated for that specific major. However, we do not need all those classes to meet the major prep. So the tag, so my colleague is going to give out, you probably already have it, the transfer admission guide. That booklet is going to have all the information that you need for that specific major. And again, this is just for UCLA. Every campus might be different, so you want to be mindful and also ask those questions to all their reps from those universities that you're interested about applying, because perhaps there's going to be a difference in the majors that you're going to be choosing or the classes that you need to take for that specific major. So again, Assist will give you every single class, but again, we don't need all those classes completed before you transfer out. At UCLA, we do a holistic review. So every time that we review your applications, we go beyond what's in academics. So these are some of the components that we have for our process, I'll say. The first thing is academic accomplishments, and that's going to be pretty straightforward. It's going to be from your academics, the classes that you've taken, the grades that you've received in those classes. But we also like to see who you are as a person, and that's going to come through your personal achievements and everything that you're doing outside of the classroom. And that you're going to be able to tell us through your personal insight questions. So again, the academic accomplishments are going to be your 60 transferable 90 quarter units, the completion of the 7-course pattern, completion of major prep, and then your GPA. The second thing, personal achievements, again, everything that you're doing outside of the classroom. It could be in your community as far as your school, it could be in your community, or it could be something that you're very good at, right? So it could be special talents. If you have anything that you can tell by your background or any contributions that you've done throughout your time. Again, we really like to see the students that are doing beyond academics. It could be family responsibilities. It could be something that you're very interested in. So anything else, actually help us out, understand who you are as a student and as an individual. The personal insight questions are going to show us all of these things. Every circumstance that you have or you have had, if you're overcoming a challenge or you overcame a challenge, or also the determination, right? We know that transfer students have a different journey. So this is the opportunity for you to show how you've been successful throughout this time. If you had challenges, you can also talk about that. Because again, we want to see the whole person when we're reading this application. Another thing that we do at UCLA, we do have some of the specialty schools. So if you see your major listed right here, so anybody in the music, engineering, nursing, arts and architecture, theater, film and television, most likely there's going to be a supplemental application. So as you can see right now, we highlight all of them, and engineering is the only one that doesn't require a supplemental application. So what that means is that on top of you submitting your UC application, you're also expected to submit a supplemental application, a separate application for that specific major. They do, because most of this, they're specialty schools, they're looking for a talent, they're looking for something else besides grades. Most likely it could be a portfolio, it could be an interview, chances are that you have to do a performance. So you have to be looking into these majors and their website, because again, they're going to be doing the final evaluation of your application. Some of these majors also, you can notice, the GPA varies. Remember how at the beginning I said for UCLA you need a 3.2? See how for music and arts and architecture it's actually lower than that? Because they're looking for a specific skill, right? And remember, that's going to come through your personal, your supplemental application, anything else that they're asking. So it's going to be more specific about the major, some of the essays that they're going to be asking for. So again, just keep in mind that it's a separate application, a separate application for these majors. And if you have any more questions, if you're in any of this, we can definitely talk about that at the end. So now, hopefully right now everybody has selected a major. If you're still kind of like in that borderline between two of those, hopefully this will help you. But we like to highlight this, and we're going to do a little game at this moment. So if anybody can guess, what was their major? Mathematics?
Neuroscience.
Neuroscience? Any other guesses?
Education.
Education? Alright. So neuroscience, and most people might know that Mayam, she's the lead on the Big Bang Theory. She played the scientist role. In fact, she has, she earned her bachelor's and PhD in neuroscience here at UCLA. And one of the things that she shares when she came to campus and she shared, when she submitted that application, actually the director called her and said, like, do you really have a PhD in neuroscience, or are you just making this up so that you can get a call? She's like, no, in fact, I do have my PhD in neuroscience, and it just happens that that's also one of my passions, being an actress. So that's pretty funny, and again, it's something that a lot of the people, they assume that you have to go in a career in a different major, or pursue a major to pursue a different career. So again, just so that you can keep this in mind, and again, one of our alums. So now for the CEO of YouTube, any guesses?
Art.
art. What was that?
Fashion.
Fashion.
Psychology.
Alright, so let's see. History and literature, right? So again, this person went into the business field, but the background that they had, it was history and literature. So again, you're going to be learning a lot of different things in every major that you're going to be choosing. Again, at the end of the day, it's what you're bringing to the table, the skills that you're going to be learning in those majors and those schools as well. Alright, so when I talk to my students, I talk about different things. But the first thing is like, when you're choosing or when you're thinking about a major, think about what's your goal, your goal in life, right? Where do you see yourself, 5, 10 years? And just because I happen to work at UCLA, I do tell them, if you are very passionate about X major, make sure that you need that, for your career or for anything else that you want to do, or because you want to get some of those skills. But if your dream is maybe X school and university, and you're going to be happy with, and more flexible with the major that you want to pursue, do that too, So there's different options in this way. So for us, if UCLA is your dream school, and you're very open about, whichever major that you're going to choose, that's something that we can have a talk. Perhaps this is kind of like a little bit too late, but we have, just so that you know, we have 128 majors at UCLA. There's a lot to choose from, and there's some majors that are usually a little bit more competitive to get into because they're usually more popular, and we'll talk about that. But again, just so that you have this in mind as you're choosing those majors. At UCLA, again, these majors that you see listed right here are the most selective, and that means that a lot of people are applying for these majors. In 2017, we received 21,000 applications, a little bit over than that, and about 75% of those students, and again, these are all transfer students, 75% apply for these majors. So there's 100 more that not a lot of people are applying, and they're not as selective as this ones. This may open up a lot of doors because they're more open, they're broader, the skills and the knowledge that you're going to receive. But again, just keep in mind that there's a lot of different majors that not a lot of people are applying, and they're also helpful, for different careers. Similar majors, we ask different, or a lot of students at UCLA that at some point before they apply, they change their majors. And here are some of the options, right? Again, this is not to limit yourself with these majors that we added as alternate majors, but it's something to consider as well. Some of these majors are they're gonna be within the same discipline, so they're probably gonna give you the option to take some of the same classes. So again, things to consider. And because we know that a lot of students are going, into or already thinking about professional schools right after your bachelor's or in the future, we actually asked some of our professional schools on campus. And the first one that we asked, it was the School of Medicine. So we asked them about what are the backgrounds, what are the majors that the students are applying with when they go to your school. So as you can see, 43% are in the biological sciences. But also like 20% are in the physical sciences. So again, they're pretty related, but not so much, right? And then we have like about 15% from the social sciences and other majors. And again, from areas from anthropology, business, communication, political science, religion. So as you can see, there's a lot of different backgrounds in this. So it's not just a personal background, but also your academic background, right? Which lens that you're going to bring into this medical school. Same thing with the law. So we asked them if there's any specific majors that they're looking into, and actually they said that they don't prefer any certain, any major over the other. If anything, they welcome, applicants from different backgrounds and disciplines. So again, something to consider if you're thinking about law school in the future. And we also collaborated with the Career Center, and we asked some of the employers, what are the skills that you're looking into every applicant that you have? And as you can see, the majority, 80%, 80 to 90%, they just said effective oral and writing communication. So again, as long as you can perform well in the job, those skills, you're going to get them in any system, right? It could be the UC system, it could be the CSUs. Every school, every major is going to give you some of these skills. So 27, let's say 28% of the college graduates, they're actually employed in that field. So not that many, right? And a lot of the times we know that some of our students are in a specific major and they end up working in a different thing. Sorry about that, I think it's time. So yeah, I was just gonna share my personal experience. I did go thinking that I was gonna go into law school. I did political science, and again, I ended up changing my major multiple times in community college. But also once I got to to my desired job, I realized that I needed a different degree. So that's when I went to my master's and I did education. And again, different journeys, different backgrounds, but everything that I learned, in my undergrad, it was very useful as I moved forward. So just something to consider. Another way of you to diversify and specialize in something different, it could be by adding minors. So at UCLA we have about 90 minors, including like all of this, even at the professional schools like film, television, and digital media. Those are some of the majors that that they're open for minors. So even if you don't have, if you don't want to have all these classes for the major, but you can also have like an AA degree at the UC level by adding a minor. But also there's a lot of clubs and organizations on campus that you can join, and that will give you the skills and the experience that you need for whatever professional career that you're looking into in the future. Another opportunity, and you're actually doing it now, is by joining research opportunities. Even though this is kind of like a prep program, this is a good stepping stone for whatever you want to pursue. If you're thinking about the UC system, know that all the UCs are the mission of the UC system is in fact to develop research. So all these faculty are doing amazing work, but you're also going to be working alongside this amazing faculty. There's a lot of opportunities for the students to engage in research once you're here, so there's also an opportunity for you to develop that research, right? Study abroad. Anybody thinking about studying abroad? Yeah, so for transfer students, we do encourage you to think about it and to do it as soon as possible. Once you get here, you usually have to apply like a year in advance, so it's also good to keep in mind that once you get here, that's an opportunity, so you just work with your counselors to make that happen. Who in the room is following Against? Okay, so most of you. So good news and bad news, but most of them is good news. If you're applying for the UCs, at least for UCLA within the College of Athletics and Science, you do not need any Against. So as long as you have your 60 transferable units, your major prep, you should be good. What's the good news about following Against is that we're going to honor that. So if you have your certification, we're going to pretty much give you all general education courses that you need. So that means that once you're here at UCLA, you're only going to be taking upper division courses and anything else that it's needed for graduation purposes. In case that your department requires like an additional class or something else, that may be something that you have to talk with them. But again, I think it's good to have it just so that you can be safe. But for some of the other majors, they don't require that. We also tell the students that are in theater, film and television, and nursing that it is required. So for them, they have no option. They actually have to do it. But again, for all of you, or most of you that are in the College of Athletics and Science, not a requirement, but it'll be good to have it because we're going to give you the credits as well. Alright, so this is a timeline that we have for the UC application system. So we know, probably you're already working on your application, you already started, hopefully, but the deadline is November 30th. Just make sure that you don't forget to submit it. I'll say my best advice is do it before the deadline, if possible. In January, what's going to happen is that we're going to send you an email asking you for some updates. Make sure that you're checking your emails, whichever email that you're going to be using for this application. Make sure that you're checking it. It's very important between like January the 15th and the 31st. That's when we're going to send you emails to ask for the grades for this fall. And then we're also going to ask you if you're taking any classes, whether or not you're taking classes in the winter, and also which classes you're going to be taking in the spring. And that's going to be very important because a lot of you might be taking major prep during that time. So again, very important to be checking emails. If the students, we give you multiple opportunities to respond to those emails. But if for some reason you don't respond by the deadline that we give you, chances are that we think that you're not interested in the UC system, so we're going to move on to keep with the other applications. So make sure that you're checking your application or your emails because we're going to be communicating with you that way. Late April, it's when we submit or release the decisions, and that's when you're going to find out whether or not you were admitted to UCLA and any of the other UCs. And June 1st, that's your deadline to decide where you're going. So pretty straightforward. This doesn't really change any, that's why we don't have any years because it's pretty much the same all the time. So again, just don't forget to submit your application, very important, and give us the update. So after you submit it, don't think that you're done. You also have, that responsibility to continue responding to our emails in late January. Some of the things that I do want to highlight, and I always remember, hopefully you're going to remember this, but I always remind my students, make sure that you complete a major prep. That's going to be your priority. Remember, for us, besides, even before we get to the GPA, we look at the major prep. So make sure that you're completing that, prioritizing that. Some of the majors, and you have your transfer admission guide, so follow that, and then towards the end, it'll tell you whether or not you need to submit that by the spring or by the fall. I did list it right here too, that business economics, economics, and psychology, they do require and highly suggest that you finish everything by the fall. And again, because those are highly selected majors, and they want to see the grades already by the time that we receive your application. If possible, have no more than 2 major prep in progress in spring, because again, those are going to be some of the classes that we're going to look into when we're doing the evaluation. You must complete your 7-course pattern as early as possible. Remember those English, the math, and the 4 electives. So don't leave your English or don't leave your math towards the end, because we do want to see those grades. You don't want your application to be jeopardized because you're missing one of those requirements. And again, if possible, if your community college is offering some of those courses, take them during the winter, just so that you can get that out of the way, and then maybe you can only have 1 more pending in the spring. So again, if you have any questions, we'll talk about them towards the end. But again, these are just major prep tips that we gather, as we're working with some of the community college students. All right, so now we're going to jump into how you can present yourself in the application. Some of the tips that we want to share with you as well are, first when you submit your application, and then for the personal insight questions. So there's going to be a little bit of everything. So again, if you have questions here, I'll take them now. But again, for the application process, I think it's more detailed. So if it's something more personal, we can also talk about it towards the end. So the first thing, remember, keep in mind that we're going to be sharing this application with all the 9 campuses, right? So everything that you're going to be submitting, everybody's going to read it. So even if you're just applying to one campus, or if you have one preference over the other, everybody's going to see it, everybody's going to review it, and we're going to be looking for the same thing. So remember the first overview that I gave, the 60 or 90 transferable units, the 7-course pattern, the GPA, and then we're also going to go into the PIQs. So remember, every campus is going to use the PIQs in a different way, but for us, we're going to do what we call the comprehensive review. So everybody's looking for grades, the classes, the courses, everything that you're doing, but we're also going to be assessing everything that you're doing outside, right? So any activities, awards that you have, work, employment, it's not just your grades, but it's the whole application. I believe that everybody submitted or has a transfer admission plan, right? Alright, so that's something that it's very important that you continue using it or updating it, because at the same time, when you're submitting your UC application, one of the components is going to be academic history. So if you have already completed your transfer admission planner, what's going to happen, this is how it's going to look in your application. So essentially, before you get, or once you get to the academic history, it's going to ask you if you have your UC transfer admission planner. If you do, you're going to log in, and then what's going to happen is going to sync all that information. So when you're working in your UC application, you don't have to type everything again. It's actually just going to be transferred from that tab account into the UC application. So if you're doing it right now, it's going to be less time once you're working in that application. The next thing that it's going to happen, they're going to ask you for your high school attendance. The main thing that we want is just the name of the school, the time that you attended, and if it was outside of the U.S., we're also going to ask, the language of instruction. We don't need no transcripts from high school. The college of attendance, so make sure that you're listing every single campus that you attended, whether 4-year, all the UCs or all the CCs that you attended. Be careful also when you're doing this, because it's going to ask you the college system. So it could be the quarter, it could be semester, and also semester with winter intersection. So if you're taking any classes in the winter and you forgot to change that and you only put it semester, chances are that you're not going to be able to change that, and you're going to have to contact the UCOP so that they can do it if it's after you submit your college history. 2 things to highlight when you're doing your academic history. If you have to do it manually, make sure that you do, because you want to get credit for every class that you took. If it's not transferable, also if you use the tab, make sure that you're going to also review every single class in case that something didn't transfer or it didn't transfer as you expected. So you can also do it manually, and I think that'll be the best bet because we're going to be doing the evaluation on our end. So if there's anything that needs to be changed, we'll do that for you. But we expect and hope that you're going to make sure that you, because you're going to have your transcripts, that you're going to be checking the transcripts and also your UC application. There's a lot of students that also ask about like W's or if they want to explain anything within the academic history. At the end, you're going to notice that there's a section for you to write pretty much anything related to your academic history. So if there's anything that you want to list, this is a good opportunity. It is also limited, but you have a little bit more space. So it's 550 words that you can use to explain anything about academic history. It could be W's, anything that you've done, or if there was a break in education. The gaps, also ask you within the application, but if there's anything else that you want to tell the reader, that'll be great. Activities and awards. A lot of the times we know that it could be confusing how to choose which activities or which awards I should be including. The things that we want to see is everything that you've done in the community college. There's a lot of things that you probably have done in high school, amazing things, but the most things that we want to see is after high school. So if it could be within the community, it could be in your community college, or it could be in church, or anything, any other place will be great. Also, if you're working and you've received an award, this is a good opportunity for you to list it. Again, this is just going to give us more about you, about what are the things that matter to you, and how you've been involved, outside of the classroom. All right, any questions so far? As far as academic history, academic activities and awards? Yes.
For the non-transferable, like it said, like I don't see my class.
Yes.
I have UCLA extension classes, and I know they're transferable, but I still have to write them there. Would the units, like, would it work against me in any way? Or?
No, not at all.
Okay.
So what's going to happen is you also have to list UCLA extension. So when you're listing the schools, you're going to list your community colleges and also UCLA extension. And then under that, that's where you're going to list the courses.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
For major prep, if the district of the community college doesn't offer a class that you need, how do you go about it?
So if, let's say for example, if your district doesn't offer any of those classes for major prep, we hope that at least you can try, to expand and look at different schools so that you can take those major prep. But if it's like too far, if you have something, that maybe like transportation could be an issue, this is something that you can also write in academic history as well. Another thing that we see it a lot is through the personal insight questions. That's also another opportunity for you to talk about it. But just remember that not every campus is going to be requiring the same major prep. So even if you say like, oh, I'm sure, for a class, for my major, chances are that you're probably going to be applying for different majors in different schools. So it'll probably not be applicable. Yeah. Any other questions? Alright, so now we're going to move to the personal insight questions. Again, this is going to be your opportunity to express more about yourself in every matter, right? So your booklet, the transfer admission guide that you have, it has all the questions. So this presentation is going to cover them very briefly, but you also have those in your booklet. So make sure that you're using it and you're taking advantage of that. There's also another handout that we gave you, and that's more like an activity for you to actually develop those answers. So again, you have a lot of different tools that you can utilize. You can use us too. You can always connect with us so that we can help you out develop those answers. But again, there's a lot of resources out there for you, and hopefully it'll be more detailed and give you a better understanding of how we use them and the purpose. So again, the personalized questions are just to give us a whole picture of who you are as a student and as a person, to express who you are, what matters to you, and how the UC system is going to be a good fit for you and for whatever career or future you have ahead of you. It'll allow us to get a sense of your story. So this is also a good opportunity for you to tell your story. Make sure that you're choosing the questions that speak the most to you. All the questions are equal value for us, so there's no question that we prefer over another one. Just to keep in mind that there's one that it's required for all transfer students, but the other 7, you have the opportunity to choose from those. And again, there's only 3 that you have to choose out of those 7. and it's pretty extenssive. From leadership to skills that you have, any challenges or educational opportunities that you have taken. So it's a little bit of everything, and that's going to give us more insight about you. I understand also that the insights are pretty short, so it's 350 words, and we want you to go straight to the point, answer all the questions. Some of those questions you notice that there's maybe like 2 questions in one, so make sure that you're addressing both. A lot of the students, they address the first one or the last one, but make sure that you're very extensive as far as answering the whole thing, because again, that's the whole point of the personal insight questions rather than the statements that we used to have in the past. The first required question, and I'm going to give you some tips. So the first thing is, how did you create this interest in the major? How did that interest spark? So talk about that. Again, we want to know that you have this interest in the major besides just listing the classes that you have taken, because again, we're gonna have the record of that academic history. So if you list some of the courses that you've taken, that's gonna be more like a missed opportunity. So talk a little bit more about that interest. If you don't have any experience in the field or in that major, it's okay, but you can also talk about like all the projects that you've taken or that you have done, anything that you're doing that it might be related to the major, or even if it's not, you might be doing some research on your own, right? Like just to be informed about the major. And then at the end of the day, you're gonna tell us why that major matters to you, right? So that's gonna be something that we're gonna notice, that you're very passionate about that, or perhaps it could be like a family instance that it happened and you're very interested because of that. But again, just make sure that you're diving more into the major in yourself, not so much about somebody else. Always bring it back to you, why you're interested about the major. Remember that this is the response that everybody's gonna see. So even if you're applying for 2 different majors, 2 different schools, it's okay as long as you keep it overall. You give us an overall idea. I think that's what it's really gonna matter for everybody, because again, we know that you're gonna we're all gonna be sharing that application. So as long as you keep it very, you give us an overview of the major and perhaps what's your goal after that. I think that will give us more ideas as well. After that, you're going to see something like this, and that's where you're going to choose 3 questions out of those 7. The last question, you can notice, it's pretty much, I call it a freebie. So if you don't really have anything else to talk about, but you want to just tell us how why you're great and why we should keep you, this is a good opportunity for you to do that. So you can highlight anything else that that you're great about, or anything else that you can share that you haven't shared already. Through the personal insight questions or any of the activities and awards. I think that this is a really good opportunity. I know some students are a little hesitant to choose this question, but it's also good, like if you think that you have a legit story that you want to tell us, this is perfectly fine. Now, you might want to take some notes. What are some effective strategies? The first thing is that you should start early and start brainstorming. Again, that handout that we gave you, it would be great if you can start maybe answering some of those questions. But I also like to tell the students to connect with your family or your friends, people that know you, because you'll be surprised. You might have some skills that you overlook, and maybe people are saying like, do you know that you're pretty good about this? Remember this challenge that you had. Remember this other experience that we had. So I think that if you connect with people, they'll tell you a little bit more about you, right? So be open about that, and be also specific in your responses. So the more the detail that you can give us, the better, but also be specific. My last thing is always, choose quality over quantity. A lot of the students, they have a lot of great experiences and a lot of different stories that they want to share. But just be mindful and choose maybe the ones that that you can talk the most or are going to be more impactful. Another thing that I want you to remember is, it's like going out on a first date or meeting the person for the first time. What's the impression that you want to leave? So this is going to be the same thing. We're not going to have any interviews. We're not going to request any letters of rec. But this is your opportunity to pretty much tell us who you are. And this is how I'm going to remember you and your application, right? So the grades, pretty much everybody's going to be shooting for the same grades. The classes, everybody's going to be having the same classes. But everybody's going to stand out in a different way. So remember, this is going to be your opportunity to stand out. So be personal. Always use first person, even though you're talking about how somebody influenced you. Bring it back to you. Always talk about yourselves. Less effective, using humor. Maybe writing a piece of your articles, or if you have an essay that you're very passionate about. That's not that effective. If you're using a lot of quotes, or if you're writing about other people, just make sure that it's honest, it's true, it's something that you really care. Remember, this is going to be your one opportunity for somebody to review your application and to get to know you in a more personal level. There's going to be the same thing as with the academic history. There's going to be an additional comments right after that. So if there's anything else that you couldn't share through the personal insight questions, something else that you want to expand upon, you can do that. But just please do not answer another PAQ in this additional comments, okay? So we just want to be fair with everybody else, and we want to give them the same opportunities to share those 4 personal insight questions. So the additional comments, anything else that you want to elaborate on, or anything that is related, more like personal as well. Some of the resources, I'll say also, if you want to get this information, if you have trouble as you're submitting your application, the UCOP is going to be available for you. There's going to be a lot of different, it could be technical. Even if you have questions about like the fee waiver, or if you need to pay, any of those questions, they're going to be more helpful than like if you reach out to each UC. So again, have at least the phone number or the email so that you can contact them. That information that you see towards the bottom, that's going to be, if you're going to mail a check when you're paying for your application, that's going to be pretty much the same. And that's the same information that you're going to see when you're submitting your application. But if in the meantime you're having any trouble, I'll say make sure that you utilize these tools. Alright, so now, before we wrap it up, we also want to remind you that it's one application for all the UCs. For UCLA, we only accept applications in the fall, so it's once a year. We want you to apply between November 1st and the 30th. The UC application is $70 per campus. Again, if you qualify for the fee waiver, throughout the application, at the beginning it'll ask you like the family income, and it'll tell you right away whether or not you qualify for the fee waiver. And then, again, if you can't pay right on the spot, you can always select that you're going to pay by check, and then you can mail that to the UCOP as well. Very important, remember the update in January. That's when we're going to ask for grades, and we're also going to ask for those classes that you're going to be taking for the remainder of the year. Some of the resources that you have available for you, the first thing will be always go to your transfer center, because they're going to have a lot of information for you, right? They're going to be counselors. There's going to be some of the transfer center directors as well for any events that they have. But also, most of the UCs and the CSUs, we go to your campus. So we go to the transfer centers, and that's where we have some of those informal or formal meetings with you. We can see your grades, we can see your classes, we can give you some updates if we have for your major. And that's also a good opportunity for you to, to get to know the reps and a little bit more about our campus. The transfer admission planner, again, that's something that you already have, which I'm very grateful for that, because it's going to save you time when you're submitting your application. And also, I'm available if, I might be your representative for your campus, but we have a lot of different representatives in our campus. Everybody's attached, to one of the campuses, to the community colleges. So you're always going to have somebody to rely on to ask questions, to make sure that you're on the right track. If you have any questions about your major prep, and also the CC to PhD program. Now that you're here, utilize them. Make sure that you attend to all the sessions, because all of us, we're here to help you be successful. If you want to transfer, we want you to transfer. So we want to make sure that you're prepared, that you have all the tools, that you have the classes, that you have everything possible to make it happen. And I know that there's probably going to be a lot of questions about financial aid, and yes, it'll be a little bit more expensive as you go, but just know that it's going to be an investment, right? But at UCLA, we have a lot of different opportunities for you. You also receive one pamphlet that has more information about UCLA financial aid. So the different forms and the types that we have of financial aid. Remember that you have to submit your FAFSA or your California Dream Act application. Make sure that you follow their deadlines so that you can receive some of that information in packages as well. If you have more questions about financial aid, we do have what we call Financial Aid TV. So our website, their website, will have more information and quick videos. So it's maybe like a 3-minute video, 5-minute video, and how to submit your FAFSA, how to read your FAFSA. And so again, they're going to give you more tips, and it's pretty short, so I'll say take advantage of that. There's also a calculator that you can utilize. And one of the commitments that we have throughout the UCs is the Blue and Gold Opportunity Plan. So if your family income is $80,000 or less, there's a commitment that we're going to be able to offer this Blue and Gold Opportunity Plan, in which is going to pay for your tuition. So this is something that is very, I think that's kind of like the highlight of the UCs. And I'll speak from that too. I was one of the students that benefited from that. So again, if you're struggling about like paying for your education, also applying for scholarships will be great. So start early, start doing it now, because again, there's a lot of different opportunities and free money out there for you. It's just a matter of doing your research and applying in advance. All right, so that's my information. Again, I think that the best idea will be email, because we're pretty much all over the place. I'm going to different community colleges. But I think that if you send me an email, I'll try my best to get back to you. I know that we're going to have some meetings later on, and I'll be more than happy to review your personalized questions or talk about the application in major prep. So at this moment, now I'm going to open the floor.
Extension for access.
Yes. Thank you. So know that I kept saying that the deadline for the UC application is the 30th, but we just released a new update for those students that have been affected by the fires. We're going to do an extension until December the 15th. So if you have been affected by that, there's a process that you can do and have your application submitted later on. So again, that's going to be more like a personal case-by-case scenario. But they're giving that option for the students that have been affected by the fires. Thank you. All right, so now I'll take some questions. Yes.
Is the Blue and Gold opportunity something you have to apply for, or is it automatically given?
Yeah, so the Blue and Gold Opportunity Plan, pretty much you submit your FAFSA, your California Dream Act application, and through that package, that's how they're going to give you the Blue and Gold. Yes.
Are they looking at your GPA from November 30th or from the update of January 31st when you're
When you
applying?
submit your application. So yeah, for the GPA, for our purposes, we look all the way through the end of fall. So the end of the semester, that's where we're going to be looking into for the GPA. Also, there are some majors that if we need like some of those classes for major prep, we're still going to see your grades for winter and spring, but it's not going to weight the same as everything else through the end of the semester. Okay, yes.
So yeah, I was piggybacking off of his Blue and Gold one. Does it matter how many people are in your family to qualify for the 80 grant, or is it just even if it's just you and one parent?
That's going to be a really good question for financial aid. I'm not 100% sure, but I know that even though there's other people in your family in college, they'll still make those adjustments as well.
No. What I mean is more of it's just you and like a parent, and then that's it. It's just that's your income for.
Yeah, so it's a family
Oh,
income.
okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Where on like the application as a whole would you reflect something like this program?
For the CC to PhD program?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that it'll be best if you're gonna, depending on the projects that you have coming up. But I think that during the activities and awards, I think that'll be the best place. Unless you want to talk about that, using one of your personal insight questions, I think that'll be a great opportunity as well. Yes.
For PIQ 4 and 5, it asks us to talk about a significant challenge we overcame. Is it okay if we talk about a challenge we faced prior to community college, or does it have to be during community college?
No, it could be prior to that as well, as long as you can also talk about how that influenced or impacted your life,
Yeah.
To where you are now. Yeah. Pretty good questions. Yes.
So at my school, it's a little weird. We technically don't have winter. What we have is the month of January though. A class. It starts at the very beginning of January, ends at the very end of January, but it counts for the spring semester.
Okay.
Right. So would you say to put that grade into like the end of the January 31st grade if we know it, like we know for sure, like we've emailed it professionally, said this is your grade, but it hasn't been posted to our transcript yet, or would you say no, leave it out, don't even?
Yeah, you can do the updates, and also just remember that after you submit all your academic history, there's going to be a comment section. So I think that'll be a good place for you to say, I'm taking this class in during this time, even though it counts for the spring. So I mean, if you already have the grade, you can all go ahead and put it.
And that additional comments, that was all at the very end of the application, right?
Towards the end of the academic history.
Oh, it turns into, okay.
Yes.
For the blue and gold, I read that you have to be in your first 2 years as a transfer student. If I'm my third, does that mean I'm not eligible for the blue and gold?
Well, technically, you're still in community college. So even though it's like the third year, that's more like when you're here. So for transfer students, you technically have 2 more years to complete, right? So those are the 2 years that they're talking about. Yeah, good questions. Yes to the back, and then I'll come.
Do major prep courses count for the 7 course patterns for elective classes?
It all depends what's your major. So depending on the major, because again, the math, the English, I mean, that could be major prep, but if it's not, you still have to take those. But it all depends on the major. Most likely, some of them you're still going to be doing, and you can do the double GP in that sense. Yeah.
For non-courses in the spring semester that are not, for your major, or like you already finished the 60 units. Like, how do you guys look at the pass-fail?
Yeah. So still want you to challenge yourself. If you're still gonna be taking classes, make sure that you're performing well. Because again, you don't want to jeopardize also your application. Because at the end of the day, also you don't know which classes we're still holding you accountable for, or which classes we need. Because again, there's a different process of like when we're doing the evaluation. You might be thinking that some of the classes, even though they might be transferable, there's some limitations. So we might just give you credit for one and not the other. But we're always going to be doing whatever is best for you. Whatever makes your application better and stronger, we're always going to be doing that. So going back to, if you don't do well in those classes, I mean, there's nothing that we can do, to be honest. But I'll say just try your best because, again, you want to look
No,
stronger.
I'm talking about putting it because how they offer a pass-fail in the spring. Would you guys like?
I mean, it doesn't really matter for us as long as it's not major prep. If it's major prep or a transferable course that might give you or increase your GPA, I'll say do that. But as long as it's not major prep, we're not too concerned. Also, the 7 course pattern. Yeah. Some students also decide to take a break during that time if they finish everything, 60 transferable units and the major prep, and that's okay. You can just leave it blank if you're not taking classes, but you also have to explain what you're doing, or you can just say, I finished my major prep, I'm working, or I'm doing this internship, so it'll ask you to give an explanation.
Yeah, so he had asked where to put the CC to PhD on our application.
Mm-hmm.
You said either the PIQ or the academic prep program, preparation
Activities.
programs. Can we do both, right? Are we able to do both, or would you prefer
You can do
not
both
to?
as long as you talk about 2 different experiences, right? It could be the same activity, but it could be 2 different experiences that you're talking about.
Oh, okay.
For the activities, it's very limited, so you're probably going to give like a quick description,
Yeah, kind of like
and
what
maybe
we
like
did.
what was your role, what did you do, and then in the PAQ you can explain.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
As far as the grade update, do we update it in the UC tab or do we update it in the UC application?
The UC application. Yeah, so the UC application, and you're probably going to receive the email, and it'll have the link, and it's probably going to take you back to the UC application.
Oh no, I mean like right now, like if I want to update like some grades, or if let's say I withdrew a class,
Mm-hmm.
do I update it in the UC tab or in the application?
Have you started your application, the UC application? Okay, so then do everything now in the UC application.
So
You can
forget
go
about-
back.
So forget about the UC tab.
Did you transfer everything already?
I did.
Yeah, then I'll say just keep it in the, go back to your UC application and do everything in there. Yes.
If we're applying for academic renewal for certain grades, but it doesn't get approved before the November 30th, but then it does before the January 31st update, then we would update that as well
Yes.
with the January 31st.
Mhm. Yeah.
Thank you.
So for my UC tab, I put in a set of classes already for the spring semester that's already been planned. But then I decided to enroll in a different set of classes for my actual spring semester. Is it okay just to go into the UC tab and edit even though like it's already classes for UC tag?
For the tag, you might have to contact also each campus or the campus that you tag, just so that they're aware. But usually what they do is also they wait until you submit your UC application because you still have to do that. And then they're going to get the updated version as well. So I'll say everything, I mean, if you want, you can go back to the tab account and change it, but also make sure that you're doing, the most important thing at this point is going to be in your UC application. because that's going to be what we're going to be evaluating now. Yes.
Just to verify, I did a tag program and I noticed a few errors. So when I submit my UC application, I could adjust it.
So for the tag, I don't really want to speak on their behalf because we don't do tag.
Okay.
So that's something that depends on the campus. But I'll say just follow up with them. But if you do any changes, still like what they're gonna receive, the most updated thing is gonna be through your UC application. But you also want to be mindful that they're gonna be reviewing your tag account.
Okay.
Yeah. So just follow up with the campus.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I'll to the back.
Yeah, I already submitted my application, but is there a chance I can edit my TAP coursework? Because I may have left out a class or two, or may have made a mistake on it.
Yeah. So because you already submitted your application, I'll say go back to your UC application and make the changes there. Usually the TAP account of the planner, it's more useful or helpful if you're working towards and you're not applying like this year. Because again, you're going to be updating it, and then by the time that you transfer everything, it's just going to be one clean transfer, right? But right now, the tab is always going to be there, but I'll say go back and change the UC application.
Even after I submitted it?
Yeah, so there's going to be some sections that you can still change.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So any changes for your application, make sure that you do them. You still have, you already submitted it, but there's going to be some sections that you can change. If for some reason you can, feel free to contact us or at the specific campus or the UCOP so that they can help you on assessing it. Yes.
So even if we're in the midst of doing this program, we can add that we're in this program on the application?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can definitely add any programs that you're still in progress. If you do have some projects coming up or something, you can always say that it's still in progress or you're planning to do those projects, so that we know what's ahead of you too.
Thank you.
Yes.
So yeah, similar to what she had asked, so if so we, in the application, we put our classes that we expect to take in the spring. It was like, say for me, I'm taking a music one in the spring, but I might take a different one. It's for the arts section I get to. And how do I update that? Do I let you guys know that in the January update?
Yeah, so you can definitely do that in January, or even before that. If it allows you to do that, you can definitely do that. Every time that you make a change, we'll get the update as well, so we can see what's the progress.
Okay.
So the sooner the better, but if not, you can just wait until January and do all the updates.
Okay.
As long as it's for spring. Everything for right now, just let us know. Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? Anything else that maybe you want me to address? Yes.
Something is not related to our major from here. When I look at the assist.org, it's said for the engineering, you need, I guess, you need general education. But here when you show us about the slide, it said not recommended.
Yeah, so for engineering, because they want you to prioritize your major prep, because that's going to be a lot of courses. So most likely as you're doing the major prep, you're going to be reaching some of the 60 transferable units. So again, everything is going to be within those classes. Because some of the classes that we ask for engineering, you need a lot of prerequisites before you get to those courses. So that's going to add a lot of units as well. And sometimes, for the most part, just make sure that you have your 7-course pattern, like your English, your math, and the 4 other electives, just so that you can also have that under your belt. Yeah, but it might vary by campus, so I'll say if you're applying, with engineering with other campuses, check their campus as well.
Yeah, I'll ask for someone else.
Yeah.
And, sorry, also, you said about the psychology, because it's better we finish it at fall. It means if we want to transfer for next fall, we should finish it this fall or
Yes.
end on the division. Okay, but if, for example, I have some classes I have to take on spring, and it's not like 1 or 2 courses because I thought I said my original language as a foreign language, but they don't, and I have to take some other languages. Something like that, or for the major preparation, for example, chem or physics, and they are not just 1 or 2 units, you can just postpone on the spring.
Yeah, so for the highly selected majors, we recommend that you finish everything by the fall, because again, we see the grades and because of the competitiveness of the majors, that's why it's recommended. Can you have more classes, pending in the winter and the springs? Absolutely, you can. We're just talking about competitiveness, so it'll make you more competitive if you have completed those courses ahead of time. But yeah, you can definitely have them. So that's why I say, maximum maybe 2 classes in the spring, just so that, because again, we have a lot of applications and a lot of the students, they also have completed everything. So again, major prep is very important for us because we want you, once you're here, we want you to be at the same level as everybody else. You don't want to be behind. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
We would just contact you if it's something specific, right?
Yeah, if it's something more specific, I'll say send me an email, and then I'll try my best, to get back to you. Just remind me that you're in the program, so that I can also prioritize that.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Any other questions or anything from the tag that you might have questions? I think there's something that I wanna highlight for the transfer admission guide. Page 9, I believe. If somebody can open it and show it to me. Page 9. It has a graph with thank you. Yeah, so page 9, you can see it has all the highly selected majors, and it'll tell you like how many applications were received, how many students were admitted into that major. So you have a percentage of how many students were admitted overall. So again, this is something for you to keep in mind as far as like thinking about which majors you're going to be applying at UCLA. And towards the end or at the bottom, there's a link. That link will take you to see all the majors that we have at UCLA. And if you want to get more specific, it'll also tell you by community college. So you can see how many students applied from your community college, how many got admitted. It won't take you to the major specific by campus, but you can see both, at some point. So that's something also to consider. The last page of the tag, it has all the minors. So you can also see that we have 80 minors at UCLA. So if you're interested about one of those fields or topics, you can also keep that in mind and see how you can diversify your education while at UCLA. Yes.
If you want to see a minor, you have to include that in your application, or can you do that once you transfer?
For the minor, you don't need to select that in your UC application. That's once you're at the campus. At least with us, you come here and then you go with the counselor and you tell them like I want to do the minor in X discipline, and they'll tell you exactly what to do. But you don't need to take any classes in the community college for that major or the minor beforehand, so it's okay. So this is the time is for you. Ask questions. I mean, we're here. Adriana and I will be more than happy to talk with you, one-on-one if that's something that you choose to. But remember that we're going to have an opportunity to meet later on at a different date. So just come with more questions or bring your PIQs. We can always discuss those. But thank you. I mean, if that's the end of it, thank you for your time. I know it's on a Saturday, it's pretty late, but I do appreciate your time and your attention. And again, all this information that we gave you is just for you to be successful and make it to the next chapter.
Thank you.
So,